Tim, we're going to start with you. Who was the biggest surprise of last night's draft?
I felt that Zach Edey going 9 was a little bit surprising to me. And going to Memphis, this is a team that plays at their best, fast, up and down the floor. And I think if I have one question about Zach Edey, it's the way he's going to change ends of the floor. There's no question he's going to be able to score on guys when he gets single coverage in the post. But this league is now based on speed and space, and that's where I think Zach Edey might struggle a little bit. So I was a little bit surprised he went as high as he did.
And you also wonder how he's going to work. So much was focused around him at Purdue, and now he'll be an ancillary piece. Bobby, for you, what was the most underrated pick?
Oh, it's Ryan Dunn from University of Virginia going to Phoenix at 28. Phoenix moves back 6 spots, picks up a couple seconds here. Here's one of the best wing defenders going into this draft. Only shot 28% from 3, but he can come in and play for this Phoenix team right now.
CJ, give me your biggest move from last night.
I think it has to be Rob Dillingham getting traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Legs talked about speed and space. Dillingham is obviously explosive. He can score off the bounce. He can score in bunches. The Timberwolves have arguably the best defensive team in the NBA, and now they pick up another explosive scorer who can finish around the basket and create space on the perimeter for that beautiful jump shot.
CJ seems to like Rob Dillingham. Legs, give me your guy that's going to make the biggest impact year one.
Can't pick one. Sometimes at restaurants I order 2 entrees because I want a little bit of each. And so I'm going to go Dillingham for what CJ McCollum just said. And look, some of these guys drafted higher are going to play more because they're on worse teams. There's more opportunity. But in terms of impact, I think Dillingham, his game is built for the NBA. And in Dalton Connect, nobody is more NBA ready than Dalton Connect right now. His body, his confidence, his all-around game, and he's going to a place in L.A. They need his shooting, they need his minutes, they need his toughness, his work ethic. I love Dalton Connect, where he ended up, and the impact J.J. Redick will have on him.
What I love about that is you go Kentucky, Rob Dillingham, who comes in with a ton of praise, and then a guy in Dalton Connect who had a lot of years at Tennessee to develop into what he is, and both of those dudes can make a big impact. But to be truthful, a lot of this, or a lot of last night, is about what happened before the draft more so than what happened at the draft. The Knicks got it popping before it even started. Woj reports that OG Anunoby will sign a 5-year, $212.5 million deal to stay in the Big Apple. And what a 24 hours the New York Knicks had. They got Brooklyn Nets, Mikal Bridges traded over, and now you sign one of the biggest pieces to your puzzle. Here, if you look at the odds, so now they have the second odds, right? They're tied with the second biggest odds to win the championship, along with the Nuggets and the Thunder. Before yesterday, before acquiring Mikal Bridges, this team was 16-1 to have an opportunity to win it all. So, Legs, right now we see how the odds have changed based on what the Knicks have done. What does this move to secure OG Anunoby and also have Mikal Bridges on the team do for them?
I think prior to this, it was the Boston Celtics on the top rung, and then everybody else trying to grab that space on the second rung. And I think now the New York Knicks have separated themselves because there's still questions for Philly and Milwaukee. We're going to see what they do with their rosters going forward. But right now, there's no question it's got to be the New York Knicks. They've got a superstar offensive player to build everything around. And now you go out and you've got wings that are two-way players, but particularly can match up defensively better with Boston's wings. Well, you put Mikal Bridges next to OG Anunoby on the wing. I mean, you're talking about locking down both sides of the floor at the same time. You're obviously going to get Julius Randle back into the mix as your second primary playmaker and ball handler, because everybody's got to have 2 of those. I'm assuming you're going to get Isaiah Hartenstein, hopefully for the Knicks. You keep him. That is a pretty tough starting 5. And now you take 2 guys that were really impactful as starters for this team in a deep postseason run, in Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart, and now those guys potentially become reserves, which could anchor maybe the best second unit in the NBA. The New York Knicks have solidified themselves now as a legitimate challenger to the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference.
Bobby, do you see it the same way that Leg sees it?
Oh, I do. I think the Eastern Conference is so fluid right now. We don't know what's going to happen with Philadelphia in the next couple days, and certainly Milwaukee's a year older, and Miami will certainly be there. Indiana's probably saying, wait a bit, what about us? We got to an Eastern Conference Finals last year. I just look at what New York was able to do. We're about 3 days before the official start of free agency. They're basically done. They get Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby locked up before free agency begins. And as Leg says, you move DiVincenzo and Hart to the bench. That's as good as it gets right there.
CJ, you look at the moves that they've made. How do you see the competition in the East moving forward with the Knicks getting better on the wing and finding ways to defend against a team like the Boston Celtics?
I think the East becomes extremely competitive, but I want to be very clear here. Boston is still the favorite to come out of the East until they've been proven otherwise with Tatum and Brown, but I love what the Knicks have done. I like the length. I like the athleticism. I like the fact that they have starters as well as a bench. Thibodeau's going to do a great job of managing the minutes this season and making sure that Hart, DiVincenzo, Mikal Bridges, OG, and them are fresh and healthy for the playoff run. But I can't count out the Milwaukee Bucks. They weren't healthy going into the playoffs. Obviously, Giannis and Dame will have a full summer, a full preseason to get together and kind of figure things out. And the Sixers, they have action this year if they can be healthy with Joel Embiid. And obviously, as Bobby referred to before, free agency starting in a few days, things could change for them as well.
Not much, because there's not a lot of minutes there now with this team. There's so much depth there. But I think if I look at one spot, it would be a natural backup point guard. That's not something that they really have on their roster right now. When you have Jalen Brunson off the floor, those primary ball handling responsibilities come to Julius Randle in the half court. But when you're talking about getting up and down the floor and creating that transition pace to let guys run into three-point shots, they don't really have that on their roster. So I would like to see them maybe target a veteran player that they could probably pick up at the veterans minimum to come in and back up Jalen Brunson in that 12 to 15 minutes, whatever it may be, a night to create some easy opportunities in the open floor.
CJ, when you think about some of these moves, where did the Knicks get better the most? Like, what is the spot that you point to and says this could be the difference for them in the playoffs?
I think two things, right? You need long, athletic wings, you need defense, and you need guys who can make 0.5 decisions, which means you catch the ball, you shoot the ball, you pass the ball, you drive towards the basket, you make quick decisions, which is Tom Thibodeau's offense. You pick up Mikal Bridges, a guy who can slash, a guy who can catch and shoot, and a guy who goes back to his natural role. He was used as a number one option in Brooklyn, and now he gets to go back to probably 3 to 3A with Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, and him. He won't be expected to score 20 points a night, but he'll be capable of doing that at times. But I think with that and OG Anunoby going into the playoffs this upcoming season, they're a huge threat because Jalen Brunson has proven time and time again that he can not only win games for you, but he can close out games. You know, you got a guy that's 5'11", who's a 3-level scorer, who gets to the free throw line and has had multiple 40-burgers in huge moments in the Garden.
Well, you know, OG is going to be able to buy a lot of burgers going forward when he get this 212 piece. But I do wonder if they gave up too much to get both of these players, whether they acquire them or they sign them. You already give up Bogdanovich, 4 unprotected first-round picks, a 2025 protected Milwaukee first pick, and you're swapping a 2028 unprotected pick and a 2025 second round. And then Wednesday, you give OG Anunoby 5 years, $212.5 million to stay in New York. Bobby, from an executive standpoint, do you view these as good bargains?
I think the OG contract's a little bit rich here. I had him at 5 years, $180 million. I think it's probably a $30 million overpay based on probably the circumstances, him possibly going to maybe a team like Philadelphia here. But when you go out and you make that trade for him in December, the goal is to re-sign him, even if it comes out of a cost here. And I think this Knicks team is certainly win now. Now, what's next for New York? I think keep an eye on this afternoon, Thursday, second round of the draft. Pick 38 and pick 51. Certainly, they're going to have to add some pieces to their bench, and I think they're going to go the youth factor as far as what they do there today with the second round.
Was this as much about keeping OG Anunoby as it was keeping him away from the Sixers?
Yeah, I think that plays into it, certainly, and Bobby said it. I think they did overpay, but sometimes you have to overpay. And in this case, the New York Knicks, when you get an opportunity, that window opens to potentially go for it, that's what they've done. And a lot of people also freaking out a little bit out there about what they paid to get Mikal Bridges, based on Mikal Bridges going to Brooklyn and being the top of the food chain guy and saying, well, you know what, maybe he's not that. Well, he doesn't have to be that here. You have to overpay to secure somebody, and that's what they did. And they believe now they've closed the gap to put them in the legitimate conversation that maybe they finally get a parade in New York for the New York Knicks, which this city has been waiting on for a really long time. So I get it, Ryan. People, you're always going to overpay when you have an opportunity to go out and get the exact pieces that you need, and that's what the Knicks did in this case.
CJ, you keep talking defense, 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 defense. Is there enough firepower on this team to win the chip?
I absolutely believe they have enough firepower. They're going to be getting Julius Randle back. We're talking about an all-star, all-NBA caliber player who's going to make the game easier for everyone. You talk about buying in. You talk about Thibodeau being able to allow certain players to come off the bench that have been relied upon as starters. You take a little bit less usage away from Jalen Brunson so that he's more healthy, more fresh towards the latter part of the season. Josh Hart, a guy who's capable of starting, is able to come off the bench, start some games. You're able to mix in rest throughout a long season in which the Celtics probably win another 60 games. I think the key for them is being able to remain as healthy as possible throughout the regular season, being able to rely upon everyone, and trusting that Villanova group of players is going to be ready to try to compete for another championship at the highest level.
Well, these 4 players hung a banner at Villanova in 2016, and now with OG Anunoby, they're going to try to do the exact same thing in New York.